it's that time again. It's time for Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. And this is episode number, I think, 45. I need to double check. And I'm not going to stop because I'm on a roll. My name is Deborah, and I am coming to you from here on my family farm in the foothills of the Arkansas Ozarks, where I like to do all the crafts. I knit, I crochet, I sew, I quilt, I make baskets, I make jewelry. I'll try any craft once and twice if I like it. I am also a professor of physics and astronomy at a local university where I teach classes to both physics majors and to general education undergraduate students. I am also actively involved in volunteering at our planetarium, and I am involved in groups about women in STEM and women in academic leadership. So I also like to talk about science topics today, and mine just came to me out of the blue. If we get very quiet, we might hear them. They're going to be quiet now, and it's not Willie sniffling or Wally snuffling around. There they go, the cicada. We're going to talk about cicadas today. And last but not least, I am a farmer. I am a third-generation family farmer living here on my farm, as I said, in the foothills of the Arkansas Ozarks, where I raise grass-fed beef cattle, I raise horses, I have a flock of heritage poultry and show-quality rabbits, plus I am a retirement home to a herd of miniature horses, miniature donkeys, a miniature mule named Pumpkin who thinks she rules the roost, and Princess Penny the potbelly pig. And as you can tell from my sweet little furry co-host Willie here, I am fur kid mom to 13 dogs, 7 indoor cats, and an undetermined number of outside barn cats. So if any or of all of that sounds interesting to you, I hope you'll stick around and join us for this episode of Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. You gonna stay awake there? Okay. We'll move on. Okay, so those of y'all who hung with me through all of my very big honesty, as Miss Shirley said, pointing my finger and saying what I think. I'm glad you're still here, and we have some new viewers, so I want to welcome those of you who found me either through my programs at Mystic South or through however you found me. We're sure glad that you're here. If you're looking for us on social media, you can find me on Instagram as Dogfirewoman. There is also a Ravelry group for the podcast, Diary of a Physicist Farmgal. And that is the only two places that you can find information really about the podcast other than our YouTube channel, which clearly you have found. There is a farm Facebook page, Buckthorn Farms, where you can check out farm stuff. I haven't been as good about updating that as I am on Instagram, so if you really want to get up to the minute on what's going on the farm, Instagram is the place to be. I want to give a special shout out to some people who checked on me, because it has been about 4 weeks since I recorded, and I apologize for that. It just seems like you'd think in the summer I'd have all this time, and for some reason I don't, and I'll show you part of the reason why here. You can see the tops of my canning jars. But I want to say a special shout out to those who have checked on me, like Miss Shirley and also Celeste, and I also want to make a big shout out to Miss Mary out in California. I appreciate y'all so much for checking in and making sure everything's going good. I'm thankful for you very much, more than you know. I do want to address a minor, well, it's not a minor issue, but it's an issue that I became aware of after the fact. You know, we're all grown-ups. We're grown as adults here, and I won't tolerate anybody being picked on or cyberbullied. I became aware of a situation quite a bit after the fact. A person who I deeply care about was accosted by someone online, and I don't know the details of what happened, but it had to do with this podcast or something that I had posted on Instagram. You got a problem with what I say, you bring it to me. I'm a big girl. You don't go after my friends, okay? You know, you don't like the opinions that I express, that's fine. Here's your hat, where's your hurry? That's all I got to say. Let's not do that. Let's not go down that road, please. We're all grown-ups. We all are, you know, emotional human beings with big hearts who want to do the right thing, and we don't have time for that mess. So that's all I'm going to say about that. And to the person that this happened to, if you're watching, I'm so sorry. I would never in a million years want somebody to say anything hurtful to you, because I think the world of you, and I wish that I had known when it was happening so that I could have nipped it in the bud. But you handled it the way you felt like you needed to, and again, I'm about to tear up, but I love you very much, and I appreciate your friendship so much, and I would never want you to think that whatever that person did or said was any reflection of what I think about you, because it's, you know, no. Anyway, we're going to move on from that. So, now let's talk about some giveaways and some make-alongs. I am a terrible human being because I have not yet given the prizes for the June Farmer's Almanac make-along, but I will get on that when I get some money in the bank at the end of the month. I will get on that. And I had to have some work done on my car, and that was a major unexpected expense, but it was needed. The poor little car's got about, we're getting close to 500,000 miles on it, so I think I've got my money's worth. And it deserves a little spruce up. So I will get those out, and to the people who won the stitch markers for the Earth Along, I will get those in the mail as soon as I get a regular paycheck starting back up when I go back to on contract in August. Our make-alongs that we have going on right now are, we have the Creature Feature make-along, which is in conjunction with the Crocheting Whovian podcast. Right now we are working on Wild and Woolly. In theory, that's what we're doing. I'm still finishing up a farm animal, but we'll get there. So Wild and Woolly, so non-domestic creatures. Our last quarter will be magical and mythical beasts, and then that will be the end of that. There is a physical prize at the year end for all the FOs, so don't forget to get that going on. We have the I Like Big Shawls and I Cannot Lie make along in conjunction with the A Historian Knits podcast. And my big shawl got frogged. We're going to talk about that in a little while. Have you ever just fought with a pattern that you knew shouldn't be a fight? Well, we'll talk about it more. But anyway, I got to start over. Anyway, then we have the Never Have I Ever, which is a new skill, a new technique, a new craft, any of that. Then we have the Farmer's Almanac, the July Farmer's Almanac post. It was up, and you can look at that. I need to work on August, because here it is, almost August, and I haven't gotten it posted. I'm doing things that I would never allow my students to do by being late with my assignments, but I will work on it. I'm really trying to motivate myself to clean my spare room out today, though, so I'm going to try to not find an excuse to not do that. And then we have the Kit or Get Her Done, which is where we're making up kits that we have hoarded away, and try to get those out of our inventory so we can put new kits in there. Yay! Anyway, so that's our make-alongs. All the rules and all the prize winning info are in the Ravelry groups for the giveaway, so you can go there and look. If you're not on Ravelry, unfortunately, you can't participate in the make-alongs, because that's where I am keeping track of everything. So, you know, that's where you have to go to do it. So that's my decision, and you know, I realize that may leave some people out, but you know, that's the way I'm going to manage things for my own self. So anyway, so then right now we don't have any current giveaways active, but I am going to start a knit along in October. It's a little ways off, but Leon Alexander Yarns, Logan from Leon Alexander Yarns, came up with this really cool pie shawl pattern, because you know, we need some more big shawls in our lives. It would definitely qualify for the I Like Big Shawls make along if you got it done by the end of the year, but I'm going to run it for 6 months. I'm going to run it until Pie Day. That's why we're starting in October. I'm going to run it until Pie Day. So I'll post information about that in the group, just to kind of get a planning thread going for that, if anybody wants to participate in that. And I may do some giveaways of the pattern as well. Okay, so I think that that's everything. I'm welcome to all my new viewers. I hope that my dissertation about cyberbullying did not run you off. If it did, I guess you're not seeing this. So anyway, we're going to move on now and talk about finished objects. Okay, so finished objects. I have no yarny finished objects to show you today. Even though it's been almost a month since I have recorded, I have just kind of lost my will to knit and to crochet. I have some works in progress that I did take on my trip to Mystic South and work on, but I do not have any fibery related finished objects. But what I do have are, first of all, behind me, and I will move the camera so that you can see, this is my birthday dress. This is a pattern that is a reproduction pattern from 1924. It's the 1 hour dress. This is a reproduction annotated pattern that I bought off of Etsy, and it is an original pattern published in 1924 by Mary Brooks Picken, and it was a pattern. It was a documentation of a dress style that became very popular in 1923. Now, if you'll notice, it's the pre-flapper type dress, and basically it's just a straight line dress, and then it talks about how you can make modifications to it. And the idea was it was supposed to be so simple and so quick that women attending, garden parties or whatever could make a new dress for every occasion that they had. And that's wonderful, and the pattern is very, very easy to follow. However, I will say this, and I do love this fabric. This fabric I got from Spoonflower. It's a reproduction Art Deco fabric. It's got peacocks on it, you can see here, and then you can see I've got my little peacock headpiece there. It's got a blue sash, it's got a dropped waist, and raglan sleeves. Okay, oh hi Wally. Hello baby. How's my baby boy? Okay, raglan sleeves. And the problem with this dress style, even though I love it, is if you are, shall we say, a buxom woman like I am, and you follow the directions, which I just followed them to the letter. The first time I make a pattern, I usually, do it as prescribed. It's basically a sack. It's basically a sack with no shape to it. Which you have the sash, but there is so much fabric in it. It just could have been more tailored looking. So, I mean, it looked fine, and I wore it to my birthday party that we had at the barn for the barn kids yesterday. It wasn't at the barn, it was at Miss Mary Ann's house. But it was a 1920s themed Roaring 20s party, and most of them were going to go with the flapper style, although Sadie and her mother wore ladies' town dresses with vintage hats and gloves and things. And then Denise and her husband, Denise dressed up like she wore this really great jumpsuit and had a scarf roll hairdo like a 1920s movie star, and her husband dressed up like a newsboy, and their little boy was dressed up like a newsboy, which was really cute. But I'll post a few pictures. I don't have all the pictures yet, but I'll post a few of the pictures in a little slideshow at the end of the video so that you can see. But it was most everybody opted for the flapper style, and I was going to do that, and then I thought, you order these dresses from these various, and you've seen them, I'm sure, in the ads on Instagram and on Facebook, and you pay X dollars for the dress, and then you never ever wear it again. And even though I don't like this style so much, I'm actually going to take this apart and either tailor it or I'm going to repurpose it. I'm going to make a skirt out of it and maybe use what's left over for a couple of really cool project bags. I'm going to repurpose it because it's something I will wear again. It was very easy. These directions were very easy to follow, and what I like is they have the original booklet, so you've got all the old ads and all the information in here. It's kind of cool. So and it talks about how to make different variations. So this is a copy, an annotated historical copy of the original pattern. So, yeah, so I made this dress. It is floor length. It is long, very long, like these, or ankle length like these. It's just hard to kind of show that. And then I wore it with long gloves. I had some pearls, and then the headpiece and some peacock earrings. So, it was a lot of fun for everybody to dress up. We had a really good time. So that was good. Hi, Wally. Are you wanting to get in on the show too? You get scared though when I pick you up. Okay. The other thing that I did finish for myself is I made myself a feed sack bag. I made several of these and sent them off to people, but I also finished one for myself. This is out of my turkey feed here. Oops. So I got that done. Now, most of my other FOs, they're not really finished objects, it's all this canning. So I'm going to save that and show it in the Farm Life segment. So if you want to see all the stuff that I've been canning, or this is not even all of it, this is just a little sampler of what I've gotten done, you can stick around for that. But now we're going to move on to works in progress. Okay, so it works in progress. As I said, I frogged my fading point. I took it with me to the conference to Mystic South, and I was working on it, and I made a mistake. And I could not for the life of me figure out where I'd made it. So I ripped back, and I knitted it again. Couldn't find the mistake. Ripped back, knitted again. Couldn't find the mistake. So I thought, okay, something's going on here. I'm just having to work way too. The pattern is very well written. It's a Joji Locatelli pattern, which I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with. It's very well written. There is no reason why I should be having trouble with it. So that just tells me my brain is not in the right space to be working on it, or this yarn just doesn't want to be in this pattern. I don't know, but at any rate, I just decided that's it. I'm ripping it out. If it's not what it wants to be, I'm going to start it again, probably. I don't know if I'll start it today, but I'm going to start it one more time because I really do like the pattern, and I do like the yarn that I chose for it. I don't know. You know, I was sitting waiting to go to an anniversary dinner with Raina and Mark, and it was their anniversary, and a bunch of us were sitting around talking, and I was counting, and I'm like, I'm off again. And I just started ripping it out. I'm like, no, this is ridiculous. I can't do this. I'm about 60 rows in, and I just ripped the whole thing out. If I'd put a lifeline in, I probably wouldn't have had to rip out so much, but I thought, no, I'm going to start over. I'm going to just clean slate, start over. But anyway, so that is in a bag that I won from the Happy Knits podcast. It says strive for progress, not perfection. But sometimes ripping out is progress. It takes you out of this stalled mode you've been in. So I don't consider frogging something as a negative thing. That's the F word that we knitters and crocheters don't like, but sometimes you got to do it. So just F it, frog it. That's what I decided to do. Anyway, okay, I did make some progress on my socks, just a minor little bit. I took them to July 4th with me. These are in a little space bag that was made for me as a gift by Mary. I am knitting the socks from last year's Knitting Expat Socks Club, the Fernweh socks. Okay, and Fernweh is an ache to get away and travel to a distant place. Okay, and I am knitting those out of some Knit Picks colorway called Beyond the Wall, and I am just on the toe, but I have made some discernible progress. The last time you saw these, I had just barely cast them on, so I am that far. That was what I worked on at 4th of July lunch. I didn't stay late at 4th of July because people around here like their fireworks, and my dogs were distressed, so I went and ate lunch, and then I made sure I was home well before dark. My poor ducks, I don't think, settled down for a week after 4th of July was over. Anyway, that's not much. I know, y'all, I'm not the sock knitter. I'm not. I'd rather knit a shawl all day long than a pair of socks for some reason. I don't know. I mean, I like to knit socks. It's not that I'm opposed to knitting socks, but I'd rather knit a shawl. But anyway, I'm going to finish these, I promise. Anyway, in my little farming bag that was part of a D-stash I got from Laura from the Crocheting Whovian podcast, I am working on, do I have his front page? Maybe I lost his front page. Tex the Longhorn. Tex the Longhorn is a pattern by, I think it's Southern Gal Crochet. Yeah, Southern Gals Crochet. And this is a crocheted amigurumi. I apparently have lost the front page so that you can't see what he looks like. So I'm trying to find a picture where you get some sense of what he looks like. Well, there he kind of is, all finished. He's a Texas Longhorn. And I've always wanted to raise the true Texas Longhorn. They're on the Livestock Conservancy's endangered breeds because they've been bred out, you know, for the Corrientes, for the roping steers and stuff. So the true Texas Longhorn isn't endangered. Here's his muzzle. Got his muzzle done. Had to make two of these because Fizzy took off with one. And I'm about this far on his body. Okay. So got his eyes on, put his nose on. So I don't have far to go on him. I've got to finish his body, then make his hands and his feet, or his legs, I guess you would call them, and then his horns, and then he'll be done. So there's how far I am on Tex the Longhorn. I wanted to make him brindle, so I found this nice tonal variegated orange yarn. I'm not a fan of the University of Texas at Austin, even though that's their Bevo is their, I just like Longhorns, so. And I thought he looked good in orange, so it's just coincidental. Okay, then I did take with me, I took a whole bunch of stuff to Mystic South with me to work on, and I ended up not working on very much. I fought with that fading point most all weekend. But I did get a couple of rounds done on my doily that I was working on, and this was actually a great conversation piece because I would be sitting working on stuff and people would come up and talk to me, so it was a great way for me to connect with people. I did get a few rounds put on this before some of the talks, so it's getting larger. I think I'm on round like 8 or 9 now, and this is the Swirl Doily. And then this is from a leaflet from Leisure Arts, which is located here in Maumelle, Arkansas, called Round Doilies. I found this one at a tag sale. I think I paid 10 cents for it. But I just liked that particular pattern. It was just something a little different, I thought. So I'm working on that. And that's in my Star Trek bag. And I believe this was a Silver Shed USA bag that I got on a D-stash also, because I'm a big Star Trek fan. And the reason it's in such a gigantic bag is so I can fit my leaflet in there. Not that a doily needs such a gigantic bag. Hey buddy, Wally's in here for some reason today. I don't know why he's wanting to be so close. That's all I'm going to show you that I'm working on. I've got some other things kind of in the mix, but I've got some other things that I want to talk about with future crafting and all that stuff. So we're going to move on and talk about that. Okay, so for future crafting, I'm actually going to put out an appeal for help. I did a Christmas in July swap, and my friend Missy got my name, and she sent me a really adorable hat. But she also, the thing was, we sent 12 minis, and she sent all fingering weight. And so they're still in their little bags because I think that's the best way to store them. But they all could go together in something. It needs to be a scrappy something. Okay, it needs to be a scrappy something. But remember I did the cowl out of my 12 days of, or my 24, or my, I didn't use all 24, but my Advent swap from last year. They're primarily pinks that she sent with some blues. Okay, and there's 12 of them. So I'm wondering what to make. I don't want to make, I think a cowl would work, but it needs to be a cowl that would look okay as a scrappy project. And the other thing is she sent me a whole bunch of progress keepers that are really cool. There's like peace signs and horses and all that stuff that I believe in there. So I could use some input. If you guys have a suggestion, I don't want to really make a fingering weight hat, but a cowl would be okay. A scarf, a shawlette might work out of all these. So I've got 12 skeins. We'll say they're 20 grams each. So that's going to be 240 grams. So that's like a shawlette. Probably a cowl. So if you've got any ideas for really cool cowls, let me know, because I really don't know what to do with these. And that's going to be my only future crafting today because, like I said, I've been deep in the throes of canning season. So I don't have a lot of future crafting. I got a lot of future canning. We'll talk about that when I get to the farming. So that's all the craftiness. I'm going to show some acquisitions both for my birthday from Mystic South, and then also I got my fun box of stuff that I had had requested my personal shoppers, Shirley and Laura, get for me at Maryland Sheep and Wool. So we're going to move on and look at all that fun stuff. Okay, so acquisitions, where to begin? I'm going to start with my t-shirt. This is from the Mahogany Sheep. It's her first designs. She's got one that says crochet or dye and one that says knit or dye, and these really cool baseball style 3/4 length shirts. She is on Instagram as the Mahogany Sheep, and so I got this from her. She also has pins, which I haven't gotten yet, and she has one of the styles, and I can't remember which one it is in a blue, like a navy blue and a lighter blue arm, that eventually I'll get one of those too. But I just thought this was really cool. I like this shirt a lot. It's very comfortable, and I wore it quite a bit at Mystic South, and again, it let people come up and approach me. And in fact, as I was going through the vendor hall, there were a couple of ladies in there that did fiber crafting, and they asked me where I got it. So hopefully that'll get you some sales there. Then Laura sent me a care package for with my stuff from Maryland Sheep and Wool, but in it she sent the project bags that I traded for, but she also bought me this really cute project bag. Isn't that sweet? It's got clouds. She knows I love the clouds. And for my birthday, she sent me this dog periodic table tumbler. Isn't that adorable? It's got some different breeds of dogs on it, so I was pretty tickled about that. Yay! My Maryland Sheep and Wool haul is all related to the Shave 'em to Save 'em program. I specifically sent requests for particular farms. On the website for Shave 'em to Save 'em, the people that were going to be at Maryland Sheep and Wool had posted where they were going to be and what location in the vendor hall and so on. So it made it really easy for me to tell them where to go look. And then through the joys of technology, they were able to show me everything, and I said, "Ooh, I want that and that and that." So I requested these two skeins from the Rosefield. These are both Leicester long wool, and this is around a DK weight, sport to DK. It's heavy sport to DK weight, and so it's 235 yards and 4 ounces each. So I think that'll make a nice looking little smaller shawl. It's very woolly and warm. It's going to be great for that. So that's Leicester long wool, and that's from the Rosefield farm, and they you can contact them through email if you want that information. I can post that below. Then Ross Farm had Cotswold. So this is a 3-ply worsted Cotswold from a sheep named Beatrice. And what I love about these small producers is you get to know who had who the sheep was, which I like that. Again, it's 250 yards. And that, I think, would make a really nice cabled hat. Okay, so that's going to be put aside for that. Then Solitude Wool has 2 different breeds that are on the Shave 'em to Save 'em list. The first one is Caracool, which is, this is their 2-ply semi-worsted spun yarn. This is 4 ounces and 150 yards. So this is a worsted there. And it's dyed with Dame's Rocket, and it is Caracool fleece from Redgate Farm in Leesburg, Virginia. Okay, and it's great for hard-wearing applications and knit to felt projects. I've never done a felting project, but maybe this will be my first one. It's got a halo to it that you can see there, and there's a picture of the Caracool sheep there. Okay, So it says rare in North America, caracoles are a fat-tailed sheep native to Central Asia. Caracoles are possibly the oldest domesticated breed of sheep. The fleece has coarse, long hair outer coat and a soft, short undercoat, and is fabulously feltable. Say that 10 times fast. Exceptionally insulating and extremely strong. So I've never made a felted project, so this might be fun to try something felted. So if y'all got some suggestions, let me know. It's looks like it's 138 yards. So I don't know that that would be slippers. And honestly, around here, slippers with wool bottoms, because then they'll have dog hair bottoms. I guess I could get some of those slipper bottoms that you can buy, but we'll see. I'll figure something out to do with that. And then this is Tunis. So this is the Tunis sheep there, and this is also by Solitude Wool. This is hand-selected Tunis fleece from Beaucaire Farm in Purcellville, Virginia. It's double twist, woolen spun, light, fun yarn that looks like a single and adds textural interest. Not super strong, good for hats, scarves, throws, vests, etc. And then this is approximately 130 yards to 4 ounces. So isn't that fun? Isn't that bright and pretty? It says Tunis were brought into the America during the colonial times. George Washington had a Tunis ram. Tunis is well adapted to the humid mid-Atlantic region. I know humidity is a big issue for sheep because of their wool. In fact, my friends that were going to have Icelandic sheep down in Florida have decided against it because of the humidity. This yarn looks like a single, but is actually 2 pencil rovings twisted together. So that is the Tunis. All right. So now, before I get to my birthday party stuff, which I won't show everything, I'll just show a few selected things. I won a couple of prizes. I won from the Don't Stall on Your Shawl make-along from the Happy Knits podcast. I won a prize. And I won this from APL Crafts. APL Crafts, I won this skein of yarn, which is the Emerald Coast. It's 100% superwash merino, 437 yards fingering weight. I love those colors, aren't those beautiful? And then to go along with that beautiful mermaidy yarn, she sent to go with it a Mermaid Progress Keeper and a starfish. So I won that from the Happy Knits podcast. So thank you, Yolanda, for awesome. Okay, let's put the phone back up here for now. Thank you, Yolanda, for awesome make-alongs as always, and being so generous with your make-along prizes. And then with my Descent cowl that I knitted, that is a copy of Ruth Bader Ginsburg's Descent collar, I won in the A Historian Knits cowl. And she sent me this beautiful skein of yarn here, which is by Woolberry Fiber Co. And then this is a colorway called Golden Pineapple. That's beautiful. Those are both very springy colors. This is 75-25, 463 yards and 100 grams. So it's a kind of a light fingering. And then I also won a lavender sachet and oopsie, some other little good pieces, like a little llama progress keeper, which is adorable, and always need more tape measures, right? And nail files. Plus she sent a little extra treat because she knew that I would love this bag. I don't know where she found this bag. It's recycled zip pouches. It's made from 80% recycled plastic bottles. And it says, in a perfect world, every home would have a dog and every dog would have a home. And I know not everybody wants a dog, but it would be nice if there were less stray dogs in the world. It always just breaks my heart to see so many strays. And we have a severe stray dog problem here in the South. So, Vanessa, you know I love that bag to pieces. Okay. I also got in on a D-stash that Laura had posted about. And I bought myself a little crochet hook case here. Okay, although that looks more like I could put double pointed needles in it or something, because that's most of my crochet hooks I think are longer than that. But it's really cute. And then I got a skein of yarn. This is from Yarn Baby. And this is a colorway called Favorite Jeans. And this is a lace weight. And it's baby alpaca and silk. And I am doing a knit along. Well, I haven't started yet. Boo Knits started a summer knit along. Because I haven't finished my Gothic Angel yet, but it was called Venus Rising. How could I pass that up? How, in my all my goodness of loving the earth and nature and all that fun stuff, pass up a thing about the goddess Venus? So Venus Rising, and so that might make an excellent candidate for knitting that. It's approximately 1,000 yards, so that's more than enough to knit that shawl. And then she sent a cute little coaster, happy little yarn. So I did order some other stuff for prizes, but I'm not going to show that because it's not here yet, because I went back and bought a couple of other things. So yeah, so okay, let's see, I guess that's all. Oh, and here's the Mahogany Sheep if you want to find her. She's on Instagram as the Mahogany Sheep, and then she also has a website, themahoganysheep.com. Okay, now the kids at the barn, as we had mentioned, had a birthday party for me. I had put it off until today, or until this weekend, because one of the girls could not be there until this weekend. She had to be out of town for some other things, and I wanted as many of them to be there as possible. And before I forget, I want to say thank you to everybody who sent me beautiful birthday cards and Sonic gift cards and just wonderful wishes. And I'm very grateful for all the kindness that everybody has shown me. I can't thank you enough. I think of y'all every time I go get a Sonic drink. I'm a saver, as you can tell. I save my birthday cards, and I'll run onto them on days and see them, and just be so grateful for your friendship. So thank you so much for thinking of me enough to send a birthday card or a birthday wish or a pattern, or and a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't send you, and I'm like, all I need to know is that you're my friend, and that's good enough, but I appreciate everything that everybody has done for me. So birthday party was a lot of fun. Like I said, it was roaring 20s. Miss Marianne actually got me a pair of riding boots, which is a very extravagant gift, and I was very humbled by that. But she got me a new pair of riding boots because she is my other mom, as she puts it. I am her bonus daughter. After my folks passed away, she just kind of folded me into her family, and I'm very grateful for that. We had a little party yesterday, and the kids dressed up, and we all dressed up, and we had a good time. Got all the dessert plates and cake stands and punch bowls and everything out and used them, which was a lot of fun. So a couple of the things that I got there, and this is a funny story. My riding instructor Denise and her husband and little boy were there, and she gives me this bag. It's huge, and it's got all this tissue, and I'm digging, unwrapping, and I get to this box, and I'm like, wow, that reminds me a lot of the boxes that I get from Charmed and Dangerous. And guess what? It is. It's charms from Charmed and Dangerous. She knows I love her charms because she follows me on Instagram. And so she contacted Noelle, and I got a turkey, which is adorable, and a Halloween donut. So I was super tickled about that. And, Noelle's killing me because she had that unicorn, was it Unicorn Club this month? And I was like, oh, I got to get in on that. Luckily, one of the kids at the barn got me an Etsy gift card for my birthday. So that's also perfect. Then I got a bag of goodies from Marianne's granddaughters and family, and in that, Amber and her husband, who are the ones that are my age, always give me really cool kitchen stuff. They've gotten me a KitchenAid food processor. They've got me like a pickle fork, which was a little naughty pickle fork, but it was funny. I won't show that though, but that was from Christmas. And then I got some cool kitchen towels and everything. So she gave me those, and then the granddaughters got me this. They said they drove all over the place looking for this rainbow unicorn, and this is a Beanie Baby. This one's called Pixie. Lauren, Marianne's youngest granddaughter, collects these big-eyed animal Beanie Babies, And then they found this cup that says, if you want a stable relationship, get a horse. This is very true. So they got me that. They drove all over town looking for that for me, which I thought was very sweet. And they got me some other stuff too. And funnily enough, when I was cleaning house the other day, I found the very first birthday gift that Lauren ever gave me, because like I said, I'm a saver. And it was probably 5 years ago when they had a birthday party for me down in the pool classroom. And she gave me a wish jar. She decorated it up and she wrote all these wishes on it and put it in like a flip top lid jar. And I still have that. So it was kind of neat to find that the other day. Then I got canning jars, which are always wonderful. I got some candles. And then Tommy made me these. She's the one who has the pottery wheels. She made me these really cool little lidded jars, which would be great to put on a dresser for like rings or something. She made me 2 of those. Then Abby and her family kindly made me some photographs. They took one of our Valentine's Day pictures of Bo and I and framed that. And then they made the one of me and Flame and Gusty. It's kind of hard to see that one, the way the light is, but this is a picture of all 3 of my horses and me laughing down in the pasture. They made that into a cup for me, so that was a very sweet gift. I got a Snickers bar for when I get hungry from one of the kids. The Street family gave me an oil diffuser, which was for calmness and relaxation, which is always good. But also the Street kids, there's 3 of them. There's Charlie, Gracie, and Susie. And every year they have a garden, and they each get a piece of the garden to decide what they want to grow. And Gracie this year wanted to grow flowers. So this little bouquet that they sent me here is all flowers that Susie grew in her garden. Look at that beautiful zinnia, that big, huge purple zinnia there. I've got some of those outside, and I just love them. So it was very sweet that she made me a vase of flowers for my birthday. Let's see. I think that's all the birthday things from the barn that I'll share this time. I got other stuff, but that's probably enough to share this time. Now at Mystic South, I got one more thing I will share. Donnie knows that I collect geocoins, and this is not a geocoin, it's a commemorative coin, but it's got the zodiac on it. He collects coins like the challenge coins and stuff like that, and so he sent me this one where this is a coin with the constellations on it, which I thought was really cool looking. So I'll put that in with my collection of coins. At Mystic South, I didn't buy a whole lot this year. I mostly just went to visit. But I met a lady from Florida. Her name is Opal Luna. And she wrote a really cool book called Fiber Magic. Okay, and it has some different crochet patterns in it that you can use. It's kind of the same idea as a prayer shawl. You know, when you're knitting or crocheting a prayer shawl for someone and you pray, you put prayers into it for that person's protection or their healing or their good health, or if it's for a baby, you know. It's the same idea as what she has in here. It's just you know, these are for protection or, you know, house blessings, or if you're feeling a little blue or unhealthy. It's a way to put intention in your work. So regardless of your spiritual walk, whether you're a Christian or you're Jewish or you're Muslim or you're pagan or you're nothing in particular, which is, you know, how I prefer to identify, because I kind of take little pieces from everything, but, you know, mostly earth-based things. But whatever you do, when you make someone a gift, you sort of embody your wishes for that person in there, in my opinion. I mean, when I'm working on something, I'm usually thinking about that person and thinking about their well-being, or if you're making it for a baby, you know, you're thinking, okay, I hope this baby grows up to be happy and healthy. So the idea of magic being solely something that only a certain group of people practice is a little limiting, because when you pray for someone, it's kind of the same idea. You're asking for divine help, if you want to call it that. So I like the idea of including that intentionally in your work when you make something for yourself, or you make something for a friend, or whatever. We all do that. We all do things for our friends in hopes of lifting their spirits, or making them feel better, or providing protection. So we all kind of do magic. We just call the vocabulary is different, but it's all the same thing. Call it what makes you feel good and go on. The other thing that I got to go with my last year's cup of a fox eating pancakes, they were back again this year. This is Noctua Crafts, or Noctua Arts. This year they had a badger eating jam toast. It's a badger eating jam toast to go with my fox eating pancakes. Because, you know, you gotta have the whole set. So, she was asking me next year what she thought of, and I said, why don't you do a possum eating something? Like a possum eating, I don't know what a possum would eat, but, well, whatever it can get in its mouth, in my experience. But anyway, so that's my acquisitions. So we're going to move on and talk just a little bit about science. Okay. Well, I haven't been working at my day job, at my paying job, for the last few weeks because we're off for summer break. But I did go down and do a planetarium show for a group this past week. And I also presented on constellations at Mystic South I talked about some of the different cultural mythologies that go with constellations, plus these are the modern scientific tales that we tell from looking at the deep sky objects. And I was supposed to do a star program at Lake Darnell last night, and my idiot self set my alarm to remind me to drive up there for 7 a.m. this morning instead of 7 p.m. last night. So I blew that. And I feel terrible. I apologize profusely to Sasha. I said, I'm so sorry. I just apparently can't use my phone sometimes. So I'm going to have to be more diligent about making sure that I don't mess that up again, because I don't like to not fulfill my obligations. But we're getting ready. We've got we're about probably 2.5, 3 weeks out from going back to campus. So I'm starting to think about things that I need to do to get ready for classes. I need to write a recommendation letter this weekend for a student. I have a hard time, though, writing recommendation letters for students that I've only had in one class. You know, I mean, I don't have anything bad to say, but I can't write a glowing recommendation for someone that I don't feel like I have that much of a connection with. But I guess she said she couldn't find anybody else, and so I'm like, okay, I'll say you were a good student, but you know, I feel kind of limited, which is unfortunate. But anyway, so like I said, planetarium show this week. We'll get started back with those. When campus opens back up. I have been listening to some really cool podcasts about the moon landing. You know, July 20th was the 50th anniversary of the manned lunar mission to the moon, landing on the moon. And there was a podcast called 13 Minutes to the Moon, which was by the BBC. And what it did is it focused on the whole lunar program, but it put it in the context of the point from where they went from 50,000 feet above the lunar surface down to land. And they put in context, they have all the communications loops where you can hear the people talking in mission control, mostly through the Capcom, where you can hear them talking to each other about what's going on at the different phases of the descent. And they kind of focused on a section for each podcast, and then they talked about some of the history, like about when you know, President Kennedy said his speech when we were going to go to the moon, that was given at Rice University, about the Soviets you know, being the first people to put a person in orbit. Of course, they put Laika the dog in orbit, and we talked about that legacy, which is a little dark, and I still think about her from time to time. but about, you know, Apollo 1 and the fire that happened with Apollo 1 and the terrible loss of life that happened there, and then how that all of those things finally led us to getting to Apollo 11 and the great landing at Tranquility Base. So it was a really neat podcast. And then what they did was, the third to the last episode, they had the Capcom loop for the 13 minutes with annotations. So they'd kind of stop and explain what was going on. Then they had just unedited the 13 minutes of what you would hear if you were at mission control, which was really kind of cool. And then the last thing they had is they took surviving people from the Apollo missions, and they had a panel discussion at Rice University, which is where Kennedy made his speech, which was really cool. Also, several other podcasts participated in what was called a pod crawl about the 50th anniversary of the Apollo landing. I've only listened to the Stuff You Missed in History Class one, which was really interesting. They went back and actually profiled an early astronomer who studied the moon and kind of was the predecessor to Galileo in a lot of ways, but because of the political situation that he was in, he did not get the notoriety for his findings. And so he was sort of the ancestor, if you will, of the Apollo, one of the ancestors of the Apollo program. So it was really interesting to hear all of that and to hear about the process of how people were hired. And, you know, they did specifically interview with some of the women on the project because there weren't obviously that many back then. So it was a really neat podcast. So it's 13 Minutes to the Moon. It was put out by the BBC. Obviously, I listened to it on iTunes or the Apple Podcast app, but I'm sure you can find it other places too, and it's definitely worth a listen. Yeah, so I was thinking, what am I going to talk about with science? You know, we've had actually this past week was relatively cool. We had, before I left for Mystic South, we had Tropical Storm Barry the remnants of Tropical Storm Barry pass over us. And we had a couple of very cool days. Then it came back with a vengeance. We had record high heat indexes of like 123, which, if you remember, your heat index is the temperature plus the humidity. And I know right now, my friend Jessica in Germany, they're battling this horrific heat wave in most of Europe right now. And unlike us here in the South, who, man, we've got air conditioners and we've got fans and we know how to handle that type of weather. They, on the other hand, do not. Most people there do not have air conditioning, and she lives on a military base, which apparently the houses are not air conditioned, and it's brutal. I mean, brutally hot over there for these people, and it's starting to affect like people's health and babies and pets and stuff that are in the home. So, you know, a good thought to all y'all. You know, I know Antonia's been talking about the heat wave, and Jessica, so all y'all that are battling that horrific heat, I feel for you because I know what it feels like. And at least I have the benefit of fans and air conditioning, and you guys don't. So my heart just breaks for you guys, and I hope that y'all get a break in your weather soon. But I was thinking about that, and this week has actually been fairly pleasant. We had some mornings when I got up to go to the barn, it was only 59. So that breath of fall is kind of starting to sneak in. The days are getting discernibly shorter. So we're starting to feel that. We haven't had any rain to speak of this week, but we are due for rain tomorrow. So it was cool. It's kind of been slowly creeping back up, and then it's supposed to cool again tomorrow and then creep back up. So we'll see if that actually happens. If it doesn't, I'm actually going to have to do some watering. But at any rate, so our summer here has been pretty typical weather-wise. You know, we talked about convective thunderstorms. Y'all remember talking about those. So anyway, one of the things that I was thinking about while listening or getting everything drug in here for the podcast was I have these big oak trees right outside this room. I can see the limbs from them as I look out these windows here. And right now the cicadas are talking. And I got to thinking about cicadas, and you know how there's the periodical cicadas. And I thought, well, I want to learn a little bit more about cicadas because they're a pretty pretty robust insect, and it turns out there's a lot of interesting things about cicadas that I thought I would share with you. So here in Arkansas, we are in fact not in a cycle of one of the periodical cicadas, one of the 13-year cicadas or 17-year cicada cycles when there's this extra big amount of them. But the family that cicadas are in are from Cicadas, and they are a member of the order of Hemiptera, which are true bugs. Okay. There's more than 3,000 species described worldwide, and probably many more species yet to be discovered. You know, and if you don't know what a cicada looks like, I'll put a picture in at the end. But they have big wide eyes. They're set far apart. They have short little antennae. They have large wings, and the wings are what they call membranous, or they're kind of transparent. And they sing at night primarily, although ours sing all the time, but they are definitely louder at night. That's called cryptic, which means they sing at night to avoid predators. And the periodical cicadas spend most of their lives underground as nymphs, and they emerge only after 13 or 17 years. That's a long time to live as a nymph. But the idea behind that, they think possibly, is to starve the things that are predators of these things out. And then they can emerge in huge numbers, and they'll overwhelm any remaining predators, and they won't eat them all up, so some of them will survive to go on. Annual cicadas are a species that emerge every year, and their nymph cycle can be from 1 to 9 years, but their emergence is not synchronized like the 13 to 17 year cicadas are. Now here's what I thought was interesting. Cicadas have been featured in literature since the time of the Iliad. So they've been around a while, and appear as motifs in the Shang dynasty in China. And they've been used in myths and folklore, and they represent very often carefree living and immortality. And they're also eaten by various communities, and there's a lot of different possible medicinal purposes to them. So what I thought was interesting is they have a lot of adaptations because they live in different parts of the world where they adapt to temperature. Okay, so their songs are different depending on their temperature. And what I thought was neat is, like I said, they've been around since the time of documented since the time of the Iliad, and they are described both by Aristotle and Pliny the Elder. And the mechanisms of their song production were described by ancient Greek poets, and I thought that was really cool. So they're also featured, one of the other things that I thought was interesting is they are featured in a protest song, an Argentinian protest song called Like the Cicada. I can't pronounce I'll try. It's Como la Cigarra, Like the Cicada, written by Argentinian poet and composer Maria Elena Walsh. And the cicada there again is symbolized as a creature of survival and defiance against death. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then they have been used to forecast the weather depending on how fast their singing goes. They've been used as a form of currency, which is kind of crazy. And then as folk medicine, they were eaten in both ancient Greece, they're consumed in China, in Malaysia, and then in traditional Chinese medicine, the 17-year-old cycle or 17-year-old cycle are culturally important, and very often the female cicadas are prized for being more meaty. So I thought, well, I didn't know all that about cicadas, so I had to write down a few notes there. But I thought that was kind of cool, because mostly what we think of them is those things that make noise and then we never see alive when we only see the shells or the husks from where they have molted. So I thought I'd share a few interesting facts with you about cicadas. So we're going to move on now and talk about farm life. Willie, do you want to come over here and see everybody? Or does Wally want up here? Wally doesn't like to sit in my lap, so I can't persuade him. But I bet Willie will come back. You want to come back, buddy? Hey, there you go. You sleepy today? So, farm life has been mostly taken up with horses. And so, because we've been riding every day, we took the week of July the 4th off. But we will have a full 8 weeks of riding in by the time we get done with this summer. And Flame and I have had some great lessons, and we've been doing great with Bo. The cattlers seem to be doing very well here. The rabbits, I finally put the fans out when we had those super high temperatures, and they seem to be doing okay. All the little turkeys are growing up, and the ducks and everything. Squash bugs got the better of my garden while I was gone to Mystic South, unfortunately. I don't like to use a lot of chemicals on my garden because of my bees, so I was trying to combat them with just picking them off and then diatomaceous earth, but they got ahead of me while I was going to Mystic South, and I lost my squash plants. But I still have my zucchini and my pumpkins. Those seem to be doing fine, so that's good. Started working on getting some hay in for the year. I noticed a lot of the people around are putting up their hay, and that's always fun for me to listen to and hear the sound of that. I always call it like a ballet, because you've got the person raking the hay. Usually you rake the hay right ahead of the person baling it so it stays nice and fluffy and the baler picks it up. And there's this sort of dance that happens between the person running the rake and the person running the baler, because the person on the rake has to know enough on how to rake the hay out of corners or out from underneath trees or whatever, and how to stay just fast enough to stay ahead of that baler, which I always enjoyed thinking about that when I was the one. For a lot of years I drove the rake for my dad, and then when he got ill one year he we were under a lot of time pressure because there was rain coming, and we were cutting a pasture, and his mower locked up. It got a bunch of weeds or something, and it just locked up. Unfortunately, it locked up right on top of a hornet nest, or right on top of a yellow jacket nest, because they were in the ground, and he got stung a couple hundred times trying to get out of there, and he made him very sick. Now, my dad was not allergic, but when you get that stung that many times, you can't help, but your body can't help, but that histamine response is going to make you sick. And unfortunately, we had about 400 bales of hay down, ready to go, and we had rain coming out, and about 3 days out there was a big rain system predicted. So my dad's like, you've got to learn to bale hay. And so he took me to some people's house where we had some hay down. He rode one bale with me, and then he went and laid down in the truck, and the next 3 days I baled 400 bales of hay. My neighbor, Mr. Jack, he raked for me, and I baled it all. And we got it done. And it was kind of funny because my dad, you know, I've talked about him before. He was of that generation of men where women were always kind of less. But then he had me as a daughter, and I was his only kid, and he didn't know. He's like, well, you need to be independent. You need to be able to do stuff yourself. You know. So there was this real weird cognitive dissonance going on in his mind, I'm sure, because I'm a girl, and girls don't do this stuff. But then I'm his only child, so, you know, he doesn't want me not being able to take care of myself. So he would send me off to the hayfield that morning. You know, I'd pack my lunch. My mom would have the coolers packed and the Gatorade cooler made, and I'd get in the truck and off I'd go. And about 2 o'clock, I knew he couldn't stand it any longer, and here I'd see him coming. They'd be driving across that hayfield in that car, and you know, he'd make my mom drive him, and he'd be looking around to see if there was any, you know, I'd messed anything up or I'd had any problems. And, you know, it was always funny because I knew he couldn't stand to stay home. But we got it baled up, and it was all good. And after that, I was the hay baler. After that, every time I was home, that was my job, was to run the baler. So, you know, that was sort of a rite of passage, I guess, there. I was also thinking about legacy with all this canning I've been doing. One of my friends at work, Mr. Allen, he's our lab supervisor. His neighbor lady was a canner, and she had fallen and hurt herself, and she was going to end up having to sell her home and move in with her daughter, as very often happens to older people. And she had all these canning jars, and Mr. Allen had helped take care of her because her daughter lived out of state somewhere. But Mr. Allen had been the one to kind of keep an eye out, and she said, "Do you know anyone who cans?" And he said, "Oh yes, I know someone, and she would be very happy to have these, and you would really like her and everything." So he brought me several cases of canning jars and lids and rings that had not been opened, but some of the jars are older, nice jars. And I don't like to use a lot of the older jars because they do crack. I'll tend to use the smaller, older jars because they're less likely to get glass fatigue and break, whereas the quart jars are really bad to do that. But I was thinking about that legacy of handing down that knowledge. We were talking about that yesterday at my birthday party about, a lot of the skills that I've acquired as far as knitting and sewing, and my mom helped me with, but it was not like it was a legacy that my grandmother passed down. I never knew my mom's mother, and my grandmother on my dad's side, they had to do so much of that to survive. I guess they saw it as work. And once they got to where they didn't have to do that to survive, they were like the Jeffersons. They were moving on up. We weren't going to have windows we could open in this house. We weren't going to have a fireplace, and we weren't going to can food and work our honeys off in a garden. So I've had to learn a lot of it on my own, but the legacy of those jars and all the hands that have, the hands that have been on those jars, and the sustenance that they've held for families and stuff. I just like the thought of that legacy passing on. And I was thinking about that as I was working with that lady's jars yesterday as I was canning. So I thought I would share with you a few of the things that I have been canning. This is just a sample of what I have gotten done. And this is why I don't have any fibery things to show, because I've been doing this. So this is now I don't store, we've talked about this before, I don't store my jars with the rings on. I use the rings to seal them. After 24 hours when I label them and put them up, I take the rings off, because that way you don't get a fake seal. You know that these things are truly sealed if they're sealed. So this is some spiced plum jam. These are some locally grown plums I got at the farmer's market. Then with my red cabbage that I grew this year, I made some red cabbage chow chow. Now chow chow is sort of a cabbage relish. It's generally a little bit spicy, or you can make it a little bit spicy. It has a profile, a flavor profile, at least the kind that I make is kind of like bread and butter pickles. It's a little bit sweet and tangy, but then it's got some heat in it. I got some corn from one of the families at the barn. They gave me some ears of corn, so I canned some whole kernel corn, and I ate some corn on the cob too. At the farmer's market one day, I ran onto a really good deal on green beans, so I sat one day and snapped beans, which was again, one of those legacy things that you remember doing from your childhood. So I snapped green beans and pressure canned these. Now, these two have to be pressure canned. Remember, we talked about at one point in the past about things that could be water bath versus things that have to be pressure canned. Because these are vegetables and they're low acid, they don't have any vinegar or anything like that in them, they have to be pressure canned. Whereas the chow chow, because it has vinegar in it, can be water bath canned. Fruits are high acid, so they can be water bathed. Then I made dilly beans. Dilly beans are a pickled green bean with a dill pickle flavor profile to them. So these are also some of those green beans that I ran onto at the farmer's market with essentially the same flavor profile as dill pickles. And in fact, I don't know where it's at, it may be on the if you look in here, there's actually sprigs of dill in here from my garden. Then with my own squash and zucchini, I made pickled squash, which again, since these are pickle, they're vinegary based, you can water bath these. And pickling is a really good way to preserve food if you don't have refrigeration. So that's why a lot of things are pickled, including pickled okra. This is again some locally grown okra. Some of it's my pods and some of it are some from the farmer's market. So pickled okra. This has a garlicky profile to it. It's a garlic with pickling spice, so it's got a little bit of that bread and butter profile to it, but it's got garlic in it. Some people put jalapenos in their pickled garlic or pickled okra too, but I don't do that. Salsa verde, which is tomatillo salsa. Same profile as tomatillos, but and then this is salt, just regular tomato salsa. So these are from my tomatoes, and some friends gave me some tomatoes and some farmers market tomatoes because I made about 25 pints. Lots of hot peppers in there because my hot peppers are going crazy. One of the local blueberry orchards plus my blueberries, and I made blueberry pie filling. So this is a filling that is spiced and ready to go. So when you get ready to make a cobbler or a pie, you make your shell, you dump this out, and you're good to go. All you need is a little bit of butter, because butter makes everything better, mostly. And then last but not least, and this again is just oh, that's not sealed. That's not sealed. I'm gonna have to reseal that. So see, right there, if you can hear that, that jar's not sealed. These are just sliced jalapeno rings. And this is actually a profile called Cowboy Candy. So this is hot peppers in a bread and butter pickle mix. And I add some turmeric to it and sugar, and it makes it sweet. So it's like a sweet candied pickled hot pepper. And it is a big favorite at deer camp. So I posted a picture of making this, and I've had some likes from the people at deer camp, so they know that that's coming. So this is why I've also made vegetable soup. Oh, here are my dill pickle spears. I've done whole dill pickles. I've done slices. I've done squash relish. I've done hot pepper relish. I've done hot pepper jelly. I've made some peach pie filling, which is on the cooling rack right now because I just finished it this morning. I've made peach jam. I've made strawberry jam. I've made blackberry jam. So that's where my time has been going, because when I'm canning, everything else stops, and that's what I do, because it's just a constant back and forth, you know, of washing dishes, making stuff, dirtying the stove up, cleaning the stove, you know, all that. So that's kind of what I've been doing. We're about 6 weeks out from the county fair. Bye! 6 weeks out from the county fair. So I'm not going to get everything done that I had the aspirations of doing craft-wise, but I'm going to have a good, solid selection of canned goods to enter this year, I hope. So anyway, so yeah, that's what's been going on the farm. Been doing a lot of horseback riding, like I said. I'll include some pictures of some of the horse stuff that's been going on. I've really found a peaceful place about horseback riding. It is a spiritual pursuit to me, and I wrote a little post about that on Instagram. But it's just been I've really kind of come into my own this year with Flame, and that has been a wonderful feeling, and has given me hope to move forward again. So I'm excited to get started down that track again. And you know, it's as much of my spiritual path as anything, as you know, studying the stars or loving nature. Horses are a big part of that too. So but yeah, so that's kind of what we've been doing here on the farm. I was trying to think if there was anything else interesting going on that I wanted to share with you. I was trying to think. Let's see. Seems like there's something else. Let me pause and look at my notes. Nope, that was it. So I'm going to move on, and we're going to close out with a few final thoughts, and then me and Willie got to go do some house cleaning. Okay, so my final thoughts today, I was really bothered when I found out my friend had been cyberbullied. And maybe it wasn't even intentional on the part of the person who said the hurtful things, but I don't like that. And what I'm seeing happen, and I knew that there would be some blowback from my stance on the Ravelry thing. I knew there would be some blowback. I live in the South. I don't fit in always here. I knew there would be blowback. But I was thinking about what the Lorax, the wise words of the Lorax about, unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. It is my responsibility to speak if I feel like I need to speak, right? I'm not you know, a lot of people are going, well, I just want everybody to get along. I just want people to like me, blah, blah, blah. Well, usually when people say, I just want everybody to get along and I don't like the divisiveness, that's because you are in a position to say that because you have not been subjugated. It makes me furious when I see people say, well, this person just needs to sit down and be quiet because they're standing up and saying, I've had enough of this. I don't like that. I don't like that. If you're being mistreated, you have a right to speak. And inclusivity is being misused, kind of like the it's a theory in science is being misused. Inclusivity does not mean I have to include people who wish me harm or wish me to stay less or wish some other people that I care about to stay less just for the comfort of the people who think that they're more. I don't have to include those people. I don't have to include the people who think that they want everybody just to be quiet because they want to keep their high ground. I don't like that. And so this has all been kind of rolling around in my mind, you know, lately. We don't all have to agree on everything. We don't all have to agree on our religious beliefs, on our political beliefs, or whatever. But everybody should have equal footing. And nobody should be fearful for their lives, or get death threats, or have their animals' lives threatened, or have their job threatened, or their children, or any of that. None of that. That's ridiculous, right? So that's kind of been rolling around in my mind. And, you know, what I often find happens is people who have been in the, whatever is the socially accepted norm, whether it's the religious belief or the physical appearance, you know, parameter, or the educational parameter, or the class parameter, they're the ones that usually howl the loudest when other people say, we would like an equal place at the table. Because they feel like by giving others an equal place, that their place gets smaller. And that's not really what happens. It just means the table gets bigger. And so, I can't really put it into words very well. So I went looking around for something to read. And I found a blog posting by this woman. Her name is, let me make sure I get her name correct. Tanita S. Davis. She's an author. And I want to read this because it pretty well sums up, and the phrasing here is really important, so I'm going to try really hard to get it right. I don't have time for nerves and fear today. A bad moon's rising right above the peak. There's things to do. The rest must fall away. With idiocy spread like a buffet and bloviators sputtering their peak, I don't have time for nerves and fear today. Too many think hate signals our doomsday, hand-wringing over fascists' faces bleak. There's things to do. The rest just fall away. We on the fringe, disabled, brown, or gay, have all this time been hearing doublespeak. We don't have time for nerves and fear today. Wastes breath that could be used. See, I messed that up. For nerves and fear today, waste breath that could be used some minds to sway. Forgive us if we're brusque in our technique. There's things to do. Details must fade away. Let's wait and see, those unaffected say. Accept you lost. Protest makes you look weak. We don't have time for nerves and fear. Today, there's things to do. We will not walk away. So if I'm going to be a true ally, and I'm not just going to be performative, and I'm going to try to treat everyone well, I need to recall this poem and how it must feel to be told to sit down and be quiet. when you're asking for an equal place at the table. Got to keep that in mind. The table's not getting smaller, y'all. Your spot's not getting smaller. We're just making a bigger table. And if we all study on how to make a bigger table, the world would be a heck of a lot better, in my opinion. Anyway, so that's all for today. I'm sorry it's been so long since I've podcasted. I kind of feel I've been very forthright in this podcast, so I'll probably lose some more viewers, but that's probably okay too. I hope that you were all doing well. I have missed visiting with you very much. I hope to get back on a more regular schedule now. I've enjoyed visiting with everybody, and I've really missed getting to visit with you, but I appreciate those of you who have reached out just to make sure we were okay. I appreciated that very much. Willie and I are always grateful to know that people are thinking about us. And to all my friends out there, know that I love y'all right down to your cotton socks. So until I see y'all again, what is it, Willie? We got to go clean house. Y'all be good to each other and take care of each other. And what, Willie? Peace out, y'all. Bye.